It was supposed to be the night of my life, a celebration of turning 21 in the eerie, storied Blackwood Manor. I had always dismissed the local legends about this place as nothing more than overactive imaginations. But as I stood before the manor's towering spires and shadowy facade, I couldn't deny that it was a perfect setting for my birthday bash. The manor was an imposing structure, its Gothic architecture adding an air of foreboding. Yet, this was exactly what made it so alluring for my friends and me. We had heard the stories about the manor's haunted past, tales of ghostly apparitions and unexplained phenomena. But I was determined to prove them false. I wanted to show everyone that there was nothing to fear, just a beautiful old house ready to host a fantastic party. As the guests arrived, their faces lit up with excitement and nervous anticipation. Some were eager to debunk the myths surrounding the manor, while others, like myself, secretly hoped for a touch of the supernatural to add to the night's allure. We entered the grand hall, the scent of aged wood and dust mingling with the aroma of the food and drinks we brought. The atmosphere was electric, filled with the energy of youth and the thrill of the unknown. The manor's grand hallways and ancient rooms seemed to whisper secrets of the past, inviting us to explore. We reveled in the novelty of our surroundings, snapping selfies and sharing our own ghost stories, each one more exaggerated than the last. The music pulsed through the old house, drinks flowed freely, and the manor creaked in time with our merriment. As the night progressed, a subtle shift began to occur. The once lively chatter grew quieter, and an uneasy silence began to settle over the party. It was as if the manor itself was waking up, its ancient walls absorbing the energy of our celebration and responding in kind. Whispers of cold spots and strange noises began to circulate among the guests. Some claimed to feel an icy breath on their necks, while others reported hearing faint, disembodied voices. A group playing hide and seek in the dimly lit hallways came back with stories of a fleeting figure. A man in a long coat disappearing down a corridor. Their laughter turned to nervous giggles as they recounted their encounter, their faces pale in the flickering light of the candles. I tried to ignore the growing unease, chalking it up to the overactive imaginations of my guests. But as I walked through the manor, I felt an inexplicable chill creep up my spine. The temperature seemed to drop suddenly, and I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. My anxiety spiked when a portrait of the manor's original owner, a stern-faced man with eyes that seemed to follow me, fell from the wall with a thunderous crash. The room grew colder, and the laughter of my friends died down, replaced by a tense silence. The music suddenly stopped, the abruptness of it almost deafening. The house seemed to hold its breath, its silence pressing down on us with a palpable weight. Panic set in when one of the guests discovered the birthday cake, our centerpiece, completely destroyed. It lay in ruins, a messy heap of crumbs and frosting, as if it had been torn apart by invisible hands. Fear spread through the group like wildfire. We exchanged fearful glances, our earlier bravado replaced by genuine terror. Guests huddled together, their faces illuminated by the eerie glow of flickering candles. The once warm glow now cast long, distorted shadows on the walls, enhancing the sense of dread that had enveloped us. The air grew heavy, charged with an unseen energy. It felt as though the very walls of the manor were closing in on us, suffocating us with an invisible force. My heart raced, and I could feel my breaths coming in short, shallow gasps. Just when I thought things couldn't get worse, a blood-curdling scream shattered the silence. The sound seemed to emanate from the depths of the manor, echoing through the hallways like a tortured wail. Emily, my best friend, stood frozen in the doorway of the grand ballroom. Her eyes were wide with terror, and she pointed a trembling finger towards the darkness. Her voice was barely a whisper as she stammered, "I saw him, at the end of the hall, watching us." Her words sent a fresh wave of panic through the group. The sight of her terrified expression and the dread in her voice made it impossible to deny that something otherworldly was at work. The manor, once just a grand old house, had become a living nightmare. In a frantic rush, we fled from the manor. The grandeur of the party had evaporated, replaced by a chaotic scramble to escape the unseen horrors lurking in the shadows. Guests stumbled over each other in their haste to leave, their faces pale and their fear palpable. My own heart pounded as I glanced back at the darkened hallways, feeling a cold dread settle in my chest. I couldn't shake the feeling that the manor was watching us, its dark history now intertwined with our own. As we finally emerged into the crisp night air, we looked back at the manor's silhouette against the moonlit sky. The once grand Blackwood Manor stood silent once more, its secret safe for another night. The experience had etched itself into my memory, a haunting reminder that some legends are more than just stories. Blackwood Manor had lived up to its reputation, turning my 21st birthday into a night of pure terror that would linger in my mind forever. I've since avoided the manor, but the echoes of that night linger in my thoughts. The manor remains a shadowy reminder of the unknown, a place where reality and legend blurred into a chilling encounter. My birthday party had transformed into a tale of fear and the supernatural, a story that would forever remind me that sometimes the things we dismiss as mere folklore are very real indeed. It was a day of pure, unfiltered joy. My 10-year-old son, Billy's birthday party, had begun like any other, filled with the echo of a laughter and the clamour of excited children. The community centre transformed into a wonderland of colourful balloons and streamers, hummed with a vibrant energy. The cake, a grand frosted masterpiece in bright blue and green, sat proudly on the table, waiting to be savoured. The room buzzed with the sounds of games and cheerful chattering. Billy's friends darted between games of pin the tail on the donkey and a treasure hunt I'd organised, their laughter a delightful soundtrack to the day. Presents were torn open with enthusiastic shouts, and the sweet frosting of the cake adorned the faces of gleeful children. Billy was the centre of it all, his face glowing with the kind of happiness that only a birthday can bring. The party was perfect until he arrived. I remember the moment vividly. One second everything was ideal, and the next, a subtle shift in the air caught my attention. I looked up to see him standing at the edge of the crowd. The stranger's appearance was startling. Tall and gaunt, his presence seemed almost spectral against the backdrop of our cheerful celebration. He was cloaked in a long black coat that swirled around him like a shroud, and his face was hidden beneath the shadow of a wide-brimmed hat. His arrival was almost imperceptible, a silent intrusion that seemed to distort the air around him. For a moment, I thought it was someone Billy's father knew, someone who had perhaps come by to drop off a gift. But as I looked closer, the unsettling aura of the stranger began to seep into the festivities. The atmosphere, once light and carefree, became heavy with a palpable sense of unease. The children, once bubbling with excitement, began to slow their games, their laughter fading into hushed whispers. They huddled together, their innocent faces mirroring a growing sense of discomfort. I made my way towards the stranger, my heart pounding in my chest. My smile was tight, a forced attempt at normalcy. "Hello," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Can I help you? Are you here for the party?" I could feel the eyes of our guests on me, their curiosity and concern blending into an uncomfortable shared anxiety. The stranger's head turned slowly to meet my gaze. His eyes, if they could be called that, were cold and unfeeling, and they seemed to pierce through me with an unnerving intensity. I could barely hold his stare, and my smile faltered, replaced by a creeping dread. "This is a private party," I continued, my voice trembling slightly. "I'm afraid you'll have to leave." For a moment, he remained silent, his presence almost suffocating in its stillness. He was like a shadow cast over our joy, darkening the room with his eerie stillness. I could feel the tension rising, a silent dread that seemed to ripple through the crowd. I could see the fear in the eyes of the parents and the unease in the children's faces. Then, without warning, the stranger reached out. His gloved hand, pale and skeletal, brushed against Billy's arm as he walked by. The touch was cold, sending a shiver down my spine. It was as though a chill had swept through the room, freezing everyone in place. There was a collective gasp from the crowd, and the room seemed to hold its breath. Billy's reaction was immediate. His eyes widened in terror, and he stumbled back, his joy evaporating in the wake of the stranger's touch. I saw him glance at me, his face pale and stricken with fear. The stranger, with the same unsettling silence, turned and began to retreat, slipping back into the crowd as mysteriously as he had appeared. Panic erupted. The once happy party became a scene of chaos as parents scrambled to gather their children. The joyous laughter was replaced by frantic cries and confused murmurs. I felt my heart race as I looked around, trying to ensure Billy was safe amidst the turmoil. But the damage was done. The stranger's visit had cast a shadow over what should have been a day of celebration. As the crowd thinned and the party wound down, I couldn't shake the feeling of dread that clung to me. The stranger's presence was a chilling mystery, his identity and intentions remaining unknown. Despite our best efforts, no one could identify him or understand why he had appeared. The memory of his cold touch lingered, a haunting reminder of the dark turn our perfect day had taken. Billy's birthday, once a day filled with laughter and happiness, was now marred by an unsettling encounter. We left the community center with a heavy heart, the joy of the day overshadowed by the stranger's visit. Even as we tried to move on, the memory of that day stayed with us, a ghostly reminder of how quickly happiness can be overshadowed by the unknown. To this day, the image of the stranger remains a chilling puzzle. The party that was meant to celebrate joy had been forever altered by a shadowy figure who vanished as quickly as he had come. The mystery of his presence and the fear he instilled left an indelible mark on Billy's birthday. A day that was meant to be unforgettable for all the right reasons, but ended up being unforgettable for all the wrong ones. I remember the day like it was yesterday, even though it's been years. It was my daughter Emma's 6th birthday. The sun was shining, the sky a perfect blue, and our backyard was a picture of suburban bliss. We had everything planned out, balloons in every color, streamers fluttering in the breeze, the scent of hot dogs and hamburgers sizzling on the grill. Kids were running around, laughing, playing, their energy infectious. It was the perfect birthday party. Or at least, it should have been. Emma was so excited. She'd been talking about her birthday for weeks, and we wanted to make it special. So we decided to hire a clown, something fun to keep the kids entertained. I'll admit, I was hesitant. Clowns have always unnerved me a bit. But this was for Emma. When the clown arrived, though, I knew immediately that something was off. He was tall, taller than any clown I'd ever seen. His costume looked like it had seen better days. Faded, worn, with patches of fabric barely holding together. The colours were all wrong too. Instead of bright, cheerful hues, the costume was muted, almost dirty, like it had been dragged through mud. But it was his face that really got to me. The makeup was smeared, as if he'd been wearing it for days without a touch-up. His smile, painted on in a gruesome red, looked more like a grimace. And his eyes. I'll never forget those eyes. They were lifeless, dull, like two black holes that seemed to swallow everything they looked at. The kids, of course, didn't notice. To them, he was just another clown, there to make them laugh and twist balloon animals. And he did. He made them dogs, swords, and hats, all the while chuckling in this low, rasping voice that sent chills down my spine. But something was wrong. I could feel it in the air, a heaviness that settled over the yard like a dark cloud. As the afternoon wore on, things started to get strange. The music, which had been playing happy, upbeat songs, began to distort. At first, it was just a slight warble, but then the tunes became twisted, eerie, like something out of a nightmare. The kids didn't seem to notice, but I did. I looked around, trying to see if anyone else felt it. But the other parents were engrossed in conversations, oblivious to the creeping dread I felt. Then the balloons started popping. It wasn't unusual for a balloon to burst now and then, but this was different. They would explode out of nowhere, with a loud, sharp bang that startled everyone. Every time one burst, I noticed that the clown would stop what he was doing, just for a second, and look around, almost as if he was expecting it. His laughter became more forced, his movements more erratic. Something wasn't right. I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched, that there was something else in the yard with us, something malevolent. I caught the clown's eye once, and I swear, for a moment, his smile dropped. His face twisted into something hateful, but it was gone in an instant, replaced by that unsettling grin. I couldn't stand it anymore. I needed to find out who or what this clown really was. I waited until the kids were distracted with a game of pin the tail on the donkey. Then I approached him. Up close, he smelled strange, like damp earth and something metallic, almost like blood. His costume was even more worn than I'd realized. The fabric was threadbare, stained with dark splotches that looked suspiciously like dried blood. My heart was pounding in my chest as I leaned in closer, trying to see if there was something, anything, that would explain the growing dread in my gut. He didn't notice me, too absorbed in his next trick, but I couldn't stay close for long. I backed away, trying to shake off the unease, but it clung to me like a shadow. I needed answers. I needed to know who this clown was, where he came from. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I waited until he was distracted. Then I snuck over to where he'd left his bag. It was an old, battered thing, made of worn leather that creaked as I opened it. Inside, I found the usual things. A few more balloons, some makeup, a couple of props. But then I saw it, hidden beneath a dirty rag. A book. It was small, bound in leather, and looked ancient. The cover was blank, but the moment I touched it, a chill ran through me. I knew I shouldn't, but I couldn't help myself. I had to open it. The pages were filled with strange symbols, drawings that made my stomach turn. There were pictures of clowns, but not like the ones we're used to. These clowns were twisted, their faces contorted into expressions of pure malice. As I flipped through the pages, the drawings became more and more disturbing. Clowns with sharp teeth, blood dripping from their mouths, standing over what looked like bodies. I slammed the book shut, my hands shaking. I had to tell someone. I had to warn them. But when I turned around, the clown was gone. Panic surged through me. I frantically searched the yard, trying to spot him, but he was nowhere to be found. The music had stopped completely now, leaving an eerie silence that pressed down on me like a weight. The kids were still playing, oblivious to the growing terror that clawed at my chest. I ran over to the other parents, but they just looked at me like I was crazy. They didn't see what I saw. They didn't feel it. Then I saw him standing by the trees at the edge of the yard, his back to us. I don't know what possessed me to approach him, but I did. My heart was in my throat, my legs trembling as I walked over. "Where did you go?" I demanded, my voice barely more than a whisper. The clown didn't move at first. He just stood there, his body unnaturally still. But then slowly, he turned around. And when I saw his face, I felt my blood run cold. His painted smile was gone, replaced by a look of pure, unbridled rage. His eyes, once empty, were now filled with a dark, malevolent fire. I stumbled back, my mind screaming at me to run, but my body refused to move. He took a step forward, and I could see the muscles in his face twitch, his mouth curling into a sneer. "You shouldn't have touched the book," he hissed, his voice low and guttural, nothing like the raspy chuckle from before. "Now you're cursed, just like me." Before I could react, he was gone. I don't remember much after that. The party ended, the guests left, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. That night, as I lay in bed, I heard the sound of distant laughter. Not the joyful laughter of children, but something darker, more sinister. And then, the dream started. Every night I dream of the clown, his twisted face leering at me from the shadows. I'd wake up drenched in sweat, my heart pounding, but the fear wouldn't go away. It followed me, creeping into every corner of my life. I tried to get rid of the book, to burn it, bury it. But no matter what I did, it always found its way back to me. The worst part, I wasn't the only one affected. Emma started having nightmares too. She'd wake up screaming, her tiny body shaking with fear. I knew it was the clown, the curse, but I didn't know how to stop it. The clown had vanished without a trace, but his presence lingered, a dark shadow over our lives. I became obsessed, trying to find out more about the clown, about the curse. I dug through old newspapers, searched the internet, but there was nothing. No mention of a clown like him, no stories that matched what had happened. It was like he didn't exist, like he was some kind of ghost, a phantom that had slipped into our lives and left nothing but terror in his wake. But then I found it. An old, forgotten article buried deep in the archives of a local library. It was from decades ago, about a string of mysterious deaths at children's parties. The common thread? A clown. Always a clown. Described just like the one at Emma's party. The deaths were brutal, unexplained, and the clown was never caught. The last line of the article sent a shiver down my spine. The clown is still out there, waiting, watching for his next victim. I knew then that I'd never escape him. He was always there, in the shadows, in my dreams, in the corner of my eye. I could feel his eyes on me, could hear his raspy laughter in the dead of night. And the curse, it's still with me. Every day I feel it, gnawing at the edges of my sanity. I don't know how much longer I can take it, how much longer I can keep him at bay. But one thing is certain. If you ever see a clown like him, with those dead eyes and that twisted smile, run. Don't stop, don't look back. Because if you do, you'll be cursed just like me.
Birthdays, meant to be celebrations of life, can sometimes take a dark turn, reminding us that reality can be more terrifying than fiction. If you enjoyed tonight's journey into the heart of darkness, be sure to give this video a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and subscribe to my channel for more chilling tales. Sleep tight, and remember, sometimes the most ordinary occasions can harbor the most extraordinary horrors.